Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am truly zonked, and sometimes I wonder how many of my subscribers are really just spam trolls. Yeah, that actually was a thing I learned making my early YouTube videos. I'd post something and be checking the stats way too closely and see that my videos are being viewed nearly immediately. I'm like, well, oh wow, somebody must really like that, and oh my god, they left a comment too, and oh, it's a link to a freaking sketch date site of some. It's like, ah. So finally I found the option to disable URL posting in the comments, and suddenly between 5 and 10 subscribers just poof, just disappeared, and I'm like, okay, alright guys. In any case, I still see some of these quote-unquote instant views when I post a video, and it'll be for under a minute they've checked it out because they're not interested in the video. Anyway, so babbling. Welcome back to my channel and my playthrough of Satisfactory. If you watched the previous 2 episodes, commendations. I know, I'm sorry. It was 3 hours worth of material there, and it really was just about bringing you up to speed with what I'm at, the things I'm dealing with, how I overcame them. I want to be clear about things, folks. I am a hobbyist. I am not trying to compete with the bigger name YouTubers, gamers out there. My stuff is not polished. My narration is scattered and rambly. There's a good reason for that. But no, I just and my progress, it's everybody proceeds at their own different rate. I am fully aware there are folks who, obviously took to the nature of this game much faster than I did. And then there's folks, I'm sure, who are still grappling, with certain things. This is just me, the things I went through, the pace I went, the rate I went, and, everything's involved in there. So, I wanted to do something a little different. I will try to keep it shorter. I don't want to make another 90 minute feature length type of video here. And I wanted to go about, well, let me back it up a little bit here. So, in the previous episode where we rebuilt, or I rebuilt, whoever, New Nuketown, and everything that preceded it and supports it. One of the goals I set for myself is I want my factories to run on at 100% efficiency 100% of the time, and also to basically be using no power shards in the production. I am using power shards, but they're restricted solely to miners and extractors. So yeah, because honestly, I just wouldn't have enough. Quick note about the whole world dismantling. When I recovered everything back, when I did, I had approximately 1,200 power shards. I had no idea I'd collected so many. I still have most of them, the lion's share of them, in storage, but I have been chipping away at them as I put my miners and extractors out. So anyways, what I wanted to do this time, though, I had mentioned that, yes, I do use Excel to plot and plan and determine the exact amount of materials, the exact clock speeds to run things at, how to decide my load balancing, and yes, with manifolds, there is load balancing. You'd be surprised. And also, if you're an advanced player and you're looking at me and saying dude, yeah, I know this stuff. I'm like, I get it. Believe me, I get it. I guess that's just it for you then. So, but like I said, I'm not trying to compete with anybody here. This is just the things I went through and the tips I have to share, such as they are. So anyway, yeah, so this is my my battery blaster factory, producing a solid line of 780 batteries per minute. And, everything is moving and grooving, and I can basically go up to any machine at random, and, oops, let me turn off the photo mode there, thank you. And we'll see, it's going to be running at 100% efficiency. Everything is ever so slightly downclocked, and that's just, part of the way things work out with my load balancing. But I'll get to that in a moment. So, I think this episode, not not going to spend a whole lot of time, but I do want to show you what I do in Excel, and then I'll show you, how I take what I've done from Excel and start coming up with my factory designs. Also, quick note, everything's a big giant floating platform. My perspective, basically, since I started the game, is I'll make it look pretty when I'm happy with how it runs. And I'm getting there. I've got ideas on aesthetic things I want to build up later on, but it really is going to be much later down the road. Unless somebody wants to volunteer for some multiplayer fun and do a little decorating for me. That's an idea. Anyways, so let's look at some Excel. So before I get into this, let me just say one thing and be clear that yes, I understand there are utilities out there that will help you break down exactly what kinds of parts you need and what kinds of recipes and what speed to run things and etc. And they, I've tried them and they're good. They just don't, always seem to be missing something that I'm looking for, some tidbit of information. I'm just looking for something different, and I wound up coming up. And this is definitely, I did not think of this all at once. This is a work in progress, perpetually, adding and refining this technique. So I may have spent at least half as many hours in Excel. Maybe not that many, really, but I definitely spent a lot of time in Excel as opposed to the game itself. And in fact, sometimes I think Excel is the unofficial extension of Satisfactory. Excel is Satisfactory you can play at work. So anyway, so what we have in front of us, this is a partial worksheet. This is a base. This is a template of some basically just some raw facts. You take the recipe that you want to make, you plug in the details, and it will tell you what how many machines it takes, how much power it's going to use, and depending on the clock speed, it also tells you how much total resources you're going to use. You do see a lot of divide by zero errors because nothing is populated into this, and I just and again, this is just me. This is just what I've done for myself. If you want to get into Excel, obviously, you do what you need to do for yourself. But this is what I've come up with. And so basically, I've got this is a segment. This is not a whole thing, obviously. This is just one piece. But this is designed to be chainable. And I'll show you what I mean in a moment. But real quickly, so basically, this section here is what I call the card space. And I actually, so I don't have to type everything in every single time, I have created a spreadsheet that is nothing but recipes. All the actual recipes read right out of the fandom wiki page. And basically, I more or less transcribed everything, all the frickin' recipes. But what I've done is I've done it in a manner where I can just copy a recipe, paste it into this segment of the spreadsheet, and it starts to ripple out the math. So, here I say which item I'm going to build. This will tell me which machine is required. This will give me the base amount of power that it uses, the individual ingredient amounts, the base recipe. And that's important here. And then what it produces, again, by the base recipe, including a byproduct. This section down here will actually give me some ratios to indicate, my efficiency for certain resources. This is how I link them together. So there's actually two forms of this mini worksheet that I've made. One is demand driven, where I need X number of such and such parts. I have a demand to make 100 of something, and I have to, tell it, okay, it's going to be such and such part, and it needs X number of the item, and it all gets totaled up here. And then depending on how much I've got, it tells me the rest the output overall. So let's go quickly to a little scenario that I've done. All right, so this is how most of my plans work out. And another thing I want to mention up front, this is all back of the envelope math. There is nothing complex going on mathematically. This is the just simply about, pasting in some numbers. There's a little bit of multiplication, a little bit of division, some percentages. The most elaborate formula in any section here is going to be the total power consumption, because there's a curve. And but I just looked up the number and plug that in. That's just part of the template. So it's just, you don't even have to think about it. In any case, so where I start off is usually I've got a goal. I want to make a X number of something. So I'm just going to do some just random numbers, very simple stuff here right now. So I'm going to start with a demand. And this is, just the way that I do it. I'm going to say I want 100. And I'm going to make just a little text label, reinforced iron plates. Burp, I can't type. All right. And you're going to see the size and things jumping around as I, make things fit. So it's going to get a little squirrely visually, but it's fine. It'll make sense. Don't worry. Okay, so I have a goal. I want to make a certain number of a certain part. That's the demand, right? Okay. Now. Okay, so I've just pasted in a blank worksheet segment. All right. Now, because I'm starting off with reinforced iron plates, I have to plug this recipe in, right? However you make a spreadsheet, if you choose to do so, at some point, you got to tell it the recipe, so hold on. All right, so here's the reinforced iron plates recipe. And so you can see this, I just chose the basic recipes for examples. I'm not doing anything, super efficient, for a demonstration here. And what we got, so we've got our recipe label, we have our machine type, we know how much power a single machine uses, all right? And here's the recipes. We want 30 iron plates and 60 screws per minute to create 5 reinforced iron plates. We have a ratio where it'll actually tell us that it's going to use 6 iron plates per reinforced iron plate and 12 screws per. These are just leftover math because. So we still got some divide by zeros here because we haven't linked the demand. So here we're basically going to take this cell and do an equals. And folks, also, this is not meant to be a tutorial. This is simply a demonstration. If you've, this is, beginner to, intermediate, I would say advanced, or excuse me, beginner to intermediate Excel stuff. So I'm going to take this one section, and this is just a text label for reference, and demand is driven by reinforced iron plates because that's just our base goal here right now, right? And I'm going to take this cell equals, we want how many? We want 100. So now, let me fix that column a little bit here, thank you. So our total demand is 100, right? And it tells us, okay, so based on this recipe, and you can see it's doing the math up here, right? It's taking the amount that we want, divides it by the base recipe product rate, and it says, okay, well, that comes out to 20 assemblers. Now, this little section here, basically what this does is if this ever comes out to be a decimal, an uneven number, this cell just simply basically bumps it up to the nearest integer because you can't put down 0.34 machines. You got to put down a whole number of machines. Clocking it is up to you, but otherwise you have to place them into whole machines. So this is why this is the adjusted amount. So if that said 19.3 for some reason, this just bumps it up to 20. Now because the basic requirement and the adjusted amount are identical, the clock speed comes out to 100%. This one just basically takes these and divides these against each other to come out with a clock speed. And then this will look at this number, and it multiplies it by the number of machines we put down, actually that one, and factors in the clock speed. And then this comes out with how many megawatts that batch of machines is going to use. Here it tells us this is going to use 600 iron plates per minute, 1,200 screws per minute, and then will make 100 reinforced iron plates per minute. Okay, so what's the next step? Well, we got to put the next link in the chain. So we're going to scroll down. All right, so here's our next mini worksheet. Now we need the recipe, and we're going to get the recipe for the first ingredient, iron plates, right? Okay, iron plates is in. We know our machine type, we know our wattage, we know our recipe, our ins and outs on the base amounts. Now we just have to link it. So our demand is driven by what is the part that's calling for the iron plates. Reinforced iron plates is calling for it. That's the demand driver. All right. And I got a little reason why I link these in the particular way that I do, but it's not important right now. So, and the thing is, okay, so we're going to take this thing, this cell. Reinforced iron plates is the driver, but the amount that we want is how many actual iron plates the reinforced plates call for, and that's 600. So we link that, right? And the total goes up here. So that needs 30 constructors, no adjustment, 100% clock speed, uses 120 megawatt, and will demand 900 iron ingots. Okay, before we get to the ingots though, reinforced iron plates has another requirement. We need screws. All right, so let's go first build in our next link. All right, so here's the next section of the worksheet, and I pasted in the recipe for screws. All right, we're going to link this. The driver for screws is reinforced iron plates, and it wants 1,200. Okay. 30 constructors, 100% clock speed, etc., etc. Okay. Demands 300 iron rods. So let's get him in place. Okay. So we have iron rods that are being demanded by screws, and the screws want 300 iron rods. 20 constructors, 100% clock speed, demands 300 iron ingots. All right, so now we're getting down to the bottom of this recipe chain. So we have two items now that want iron ingots. We have the iron rods that demand ingots, and up here we have the iron plates demanding ingots. All right, so let's build in our next link in the chain. Okay, so here's where mistakes get made. Well, where I make my mistakes. When you're doing very elaborate recipe chains, you have to pay attention that you've logged and linked everything that's going to need everything to the right spot. And I'll show you what I mean later. But so we're going to take this, we're going to link this. So our first item that wants ingots is our iron rods. It wants 300. Okay. Now our next, and these are short for demand item. Our second demand item, we're going to scroll this back up. So iron plates needs ingots, and iron plates is going to need 900. All right. So now we have a total need of 1,200 iron ingots. That's going to demand 40 smelters, 100% clock speed, and 1,200 iron ore per minute. And, well, I mean, you don't have to add in additional sheets for the extractors or anything, but, you know, you just got built in, 1,200 iron ore, and you'll start creating 1,200 iron ingots. And then this is really the long and the short of it here. So now, here's the beauty of this. This is why I do this particular way. So I can take this recipe chain, and I can take this demand number up here, and I can say, all right, I don't want 100. I want 250, which does not have a hyphen in the middle. All right, you enter that, And now all the math ripples out, and all of the subsheets, the mini worksheets, update their requirements, demands, etc. And so in this case, you know, that wants 100 smelters now. Or I could do, let's say I wanted 15,000. You know? I want 3,000 assemblers, you know? And again, this is not factoring in any overclocking, although you can totally do that. You can manually plug in, okay, I want to do, you know, 250% clock speed. And, you know, you see where this goes. So, and if anybody really wants, just say so in the comments and we'll do a deeper dive into this. But I'm not going to go crazy into this right now. This is just a quick demonstration of how I come up with the numbers of, you know, machines and what clock speeds I run them at. And let me pop over to an existing spreadsheet to show you how something came out. Alright, so this is a spreadsheet that I made for a packaged turbo fuel factory. And what I had decided my goal was, is I wanted to create 600 packaged turbo fuel per minute. Why 600? Well, as I've mentioned before, the goal that I have included for myself here is to base my recipes around the highest speed bottlenecks as a base unit, you know, an individual unit. So, I mean, yeah, belt-wise, I could be putting out 780 packaged turbo fuel, but the real central ingredient here is the turbo fuel, and the fastest you can do is 600 cubic meters per minute in a Mark II pipe. So that's why this is at 600. So I had my goal. Okay, I wanted 600 packaged turbo fuel. All right, here's the recipe for the packager. It wants 20 turbo fuel, 20 empty canisters. The initial demand is linked directly up here. It says, okay, it wants 30 packagers, 100% clock speed. Will demand 600 turbo fuel, right? 600 empty canisters, and well, there's the packaged turbo fuel. Basically, and where this starts going, this starts breaking down. Here's the recipe for the turbo fuel itself. Here's all the ingredients, because I chose, in this case, is this the blended? Or is this the original? No, this is the blended. This should be marked, actually. That's a mistake. Let me double check that. Yes, this is the blended recipe. I'm just going to do a quick little update there. And this is just a little note to myself, really, of which, I mean, in the end, it's turbo fuel, but it's the alternate recipe of the turbo blend fuel. So, you know, we've got 15 fuel is demanded, heavy oil residue, sulfur, and petroleum coke. Here are the total amounts, and here's like where you can see, all right, so to produce 600, you need 13.333, etc. blenders. So just this field bumps it up to 14, and then what it does, just does a little percentage. 13.33 divided by 14 comes out to 95.238. And so from here, if you apply this clock speed to all of the individual blenders, all 14 of them, they will basically all work at the same speed across the board as though there was 13.333. And the reason why I do it this way, I mean, yeah, absolutely. You can just have like 13 running at 100%, and you take the 14th and you run it at 0.333, or actually, well, in this case, 33.333 clock speed, and that'll put out the same number. The hits you run into, particularly with, well, maybe not so much with manifolds, but definitely with, if you're actually like directly load balancing across machines, because maybe you have a limited input for some reason, you wind up with a machine that's basically kind of out of step with everybody else, and it can cause some weird backups. So this is just me. The way I do it, I just basically, I do a little percentage, I figure out how fast they need to run to behave for 14 to behave as 13.333, and basically I have to set them all to 95.238. You also save power that way. They don't use as much juice. So, and there's a total megawatts. And here you can even see, like, if I just change this, like, I'm just going to take this, I'm just going to tell it equals the 13.3, right? The power changes, but the recipes didn't, right? That's all stayed the same. because they're doing the same amount of work. You're just actually spending more juice for it. So let me undo that. Okay. And I won't go through the whole thing, but so here's the branch that needs the empty canisters. Here's where I make the plastic. The plastic is demanded by multiple things here. I have it worked out so I know exactly, because I'm using the recycled rubber recipes, I know exactly how much plastic I need to feed back to the recycled rubber, so that the recycled rubber can feed the recycled plastic, etc., and so on and so forth. There's fuel, petroleum coke, and it all drills down, at the bottom, and I've got my totals up here at the top. So I know this takes a total of 562.5 cubic meters crude oil, 500 water, 300 sulfur, and that's it. That's all that's happening there. Here's our total megawatts. Here's our total number of machines here. This is all basically done manually. I'm just, totaling individual cells down there. But it gives me all the information I want. So I know how fast to set things. I know exactly how many machines I'm going to need. I know exactly how much resource I need. And I know when I come out at the end, it's going to do exactly what I want. And it doesn't just automatically happen. I mean, this is really a guide when it comes down to it at the end. It's up to you to make it work, in the game. But this is the plan. I'm watching Kibbit's latest build, and he's building in the desert, and he's got all his buildings all over the place. And I understand he's going deliberately for a specific sense of chaos and confusion. And there is absolutely no real planning going on. I mean, he's got some rough numbers, I think, but he is not like nailing it all down. He's like, all right, I need this many over here, and I need this many. I think he's figuring things out, like, he's running his numbers as he proceeds. Myself, I want my numbers before I ever begin. Again, personal play style. You do you. But so here, that's the short, version of planning things out in Excel. Again, you can do it however you like. This is just what I've done for myself. And like I said, we can go into more detail another time if you want. But anyways, so let's go on to how I actually build it. So here's the Blueprint Designer. And, before they released this into the game, I absolutely, I was getting my techniques down, but my builds were not terribly neat because you had to do everything individually every single time. And, there's a lot of redundant steps, obviously, that could be saved time. And yes, Satisfactory calculator let you select segments and export them as a blueprint of sorts and import that into the game. It's just, I never really try. No, I didn't try doing that at all. It just didn't seem, I don't know, like what I wanted it to do. The Area Actions mod has a copy and paste function, which I did experiment with. And while I made something working out of it, it was really janky. It's just not great. I mean, again, no criticism to modders. Everything they do is, they do it for the love of it, and I thank them absolutely for it. It's just the copy and paste function of that mod. It was not useful for me. I really only use Area Actions for two things, and that's the mass dismantle and a quick means of enabling flight mode. Anyways, so they released the basic Blueprint Designer, and my initial reaction was, it's so freaking small. I mean, literally, I'm getting inspiration from watching videos like I'm Kibbitz and the scale that he operates. And I know these guys are absolutely using this designer and coming up with stuff, and it's not saying there's anything wrong with it. But for where I was going, I'm like, anything I want to blueprint won't fit. So there's the mod, the Blueprint Designer Plus. And I said, you know something? To hell with this tiny ass little thing. I'm sorry, gotta go. Oops, I don't need that. That's not useful to me. I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it's part of the game because without it, you couldn't run the mod Blueprint Designer Plus. And this is how I build. Now I feel like, I have space. I can work. Between the 3 mods, Blueprint Designer Plus, Area Actions, and Smart, these things are basically, you just build an in-game factory editor. I do it this way because I spend a lot of time tinkering with layout and design, and there are some things, some factories I think I'd like to build multiple times, and if I feel like I'm going to build something multiple times, I'm going to make blueprints for it. But yeah, this is the largest area-wise. There's 2 different like big designers in Blueprint Designer Plus. This one has the widest, footage XY axes. There is one other that has a higher Z axis, but it just covers a slightly smaller area, and that's not really what I need. So, and I've basically taken multiples of these. I have 6, and so I can start working on very large segments of a factory, and I'll go over a little bit of that. Before I do, though, so what I'll start doing, let me think. Hold on a second. All right, so back to the spreadsheet briefly for the packaged turbo fuel factory. So the spreadsheet starts off, I have a goal, I know what I want my end product to be, and we work our way backwards down to the bottom, and at the lowest level here, we'll have the base first foundational, I call this a pod. I'll explain more about this later, but your first basic group of machines, this is the first step that must be done for everything else to follow. So we want to make heavy oil residue, right? All right, so the way this works out, I'm going to need 562 crude oil, but we're making a blueprint. We're not sweating that part right now. But what we do need is 19 machines, according to the math. Except, in this case, I'm going to change this. I'm going to do something a little different here. For the sake of load balancing, and I'm just doing this here for demonstration. This is probably not a real important part to do this with a build, this particular build, but just again for demonstration, for the sake of load balancing, I'm going to bump that up to just a slightly more easily divisible number. All right, I'm going to bump that up to 20 refineries instead of simply 19. 19's a weird number, right? So it gives me my adjusted clock speed. The amount of oil used doesn't change. The amount produced doesn't change. The only thing that changes is we're just using less power. So I want to start 20 refineries, right? All right. Okay. So I got my mega blueprint designers here. I demonstrated in the previous video how I incorporated logistic floors into every build. And oh my god, how useful that is to freaking just tidy things up. Super important. So I had to, well, not had to, but I did, adopt a certain technique to build up the factories. And that is that basically the logistics floor is built into the blueprint. And I'll show you what I mean. So first I start off with, I'm just going to take a couple of walls. And there are some quirks with these. So for some of you, if I want to put a wall on the edge of the design, and then this is using the smart mod, I'm trying to like go vertically up one, depending on where your place is. Like here it accepts it, but I think if I go over to this side, yeah, if for some reason it'll allow one on this edge, but not too high. I don't understand what's happening there. That's not really important. That's just kind of look at that, whatever. So I start off with, I want 2 walls, 8 meters. Oh, now it's auto-saving. Okay, let's hurry up. So yeah, my save time is getting a little longer there. That was about 20 seconds. I'll have edited that out of the video, but yeah, it gets long. Anyways, all right. So I want 8 meters high of logistics floor, right? So I build up 2 little walls. Now, I put no foundations on the actual floor. That's not needed here. No, there's a technique, and I'll show you that after. That's not the color scheme I wanted. Hold on. All right, I'm not going to sweat the color of the walls at this point, though. All right, and so now from here, I use this as a guide to start building up the rest of the floors. So first I want, oops, that's not the one I want. I want you. I like my coated concrete. I think it looks very spiffy. And I'm just going to create a couple of edge borders here. I'm going to extend them all the way down the length of the designer here just to start. And now I'm going to put a border of the glass floors because I like to see my pipes and belts and things running underneath the floors from above. I want them out of the way. I want them out from, like, underneath my feet, but yeah, and you know, I want them sort of concealed, but I want to show off the flow a little bit here. So, all right, and this is just, you know, this is just creating a little edge starter point here. All right, so yeah, this is going to overflow this a little bit here. Now, my next stage is, because I build everything on pedestals, I want my metal frames here, and I'm going to get this like right here. Let's size this. The refineries need 3 platforms of width, and I'm basically just going to send this out to the edge. Alright. And then, before I do this, I'm going to take some more... Oops, I got to unhand that. Take some more glass floors. I'm going to add another little border in here. Now I'm going to take my concrete 1 meter foundations and nestle these in. And this is really is kind of a trick to get this to sit in right. I mean, there's easier ways to do it, but it's just, I don't know, this behaves funny here. So anyways, let me just do that 3 wide. Oops, come on, that's not where I want you. Stop it. There. Hold the mouse in place. All right, there. All right, send this out to the end. And this is the smart mod. Okay. So now I have my concrete foundations on top of my steel frames. This is my elevated platform. This keeps everything up off the ground and makes things, you know, much more navigable when you're inside the factory. All right, so now we know we need 20 refineries, right? So let's get our refineries out. And depending on how you're building, you know, you're going to want to orient them one direction or another. I'm going to put them so that the input ports are on this side over here, facing this way. Is that what I want? Yes, yeah, now we're going to do that way, right? Okay. And so I place these like just so that the box is at the edge of the platforms. It's centered horizontally, so there's an equal amount of space on the front and the back. Depending on what you're placing, you might not get that, but again, not important right at this point. So now, again, this is using Smart. Smart is freaking amazing. Zoop is good. Smart is amazing. And let's put down how many can I fit in this length. So I need 20 total. I know I'm not fitting 10 on here. I got 8. So we'll come to that in a second here, right? So there's my start. Now, let's get the next set of platforms going here. All right. So here's a blueprint starting. The formations of 1. And we have 16 of our 20 required refineries. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply start the next portion of this in the next blueprint designer here. And let me do this. Let me bang this out. Basically, I'm doing all the same things, but just, you know, doing it for an additional 4. So that's not going to take up too much space. How many... So I basically need a 3x3s. Okay, so holding that thought a moment. So now, because these two blueprints are basically going to get joined together. I want them to be seamless. I'm not going to put in the border that I did up front here, because I got two things that are going to come together and form one, right? So I'm going to take these, because we want these to line up. Actually, so I am going to send this out a little bit. I'm not going to worry about exact numbers at the exact moment. Just keeping things lined up. All right, get my frames out. And taking extra care to make sure that I'm lining these up in the exact same way so everything matches when I put them together later. Alright, so here are our 20 refineries. Alright, nothing's belted, nothing's programmed, nothing's painted. It's just an outer shell, right? So my next usual step is basically serve as reminders for myself while I'm building, and also, you know, of course, later on after it's built, so I know what's doing what, you know, roughly at a glance. And also because, like, when you're building multiple factors in a size like this, it really helps to just remind yourself what's what, you know. All right, so let me double check our recipe. For our recipe, we needed 20 refineries running the original heavy oil residue at 93.75%. So we're gonna copy, or excuse me, we're gonna program one. We want the heavy oil residue with the sorry, this is not the original. Yeah, it's not important. With our byproduct, also a polymer resin, and we're gonna set our clock speed 93.75%. All right. So back out of that. Stop that. I don't know why that does that. It's a weird thing in the game. All right. So now we've got him set. We're going to copy that recipe and let's get these pasted. Okay. 20 refineries. I can speak. For the heavy oil residue at 93.75% clock speed. Alright, let me paint these really fast just so, again, so I remind myself what they are. And I've got some swatches. I'm just going to use this one here. The primary color is a dark purple, which is my personal indicator for heavy oil residue. Alright, so they're painted. And it's usually at about a point like this. Oh, I won't need these. These are going to be extraneous. That's just going to be in the way. Those will serve their job. But usually it's at a point like this where I'll save the recipe and just to get a start on. I'm not going to do it right now because it's not important. But yeah, once I get, you know, the bulk of the shape out, I'll drop a save of the recipe and just continue elaborating on it. So, all right, now the elevated platforms do have benefits, but also do bring in some challenges with how to belt things. They do facilitate multiple kinds of manifolds very, very well, but they can make things a little squirrely. So here's what I wind up doing. All right, so on this side, this is going to be the easy part. This is going to be where we bring the oil in, and we're just going to basically send it down in one massive pipe to support all the refineries, right? They're only asking for 562, and one single pipe can take in 600, and we just got to, you know, make sure we slap this down somewhere where the oil is accessible. So what I do is I build an extra, just temporarily, a little, you know, bit of a foundation here just to drop stuff on. Let me get to my liquids hotbar here, let's see, we're going to drop right in the center there, a little floor hole. And he's going to come up, and let me get some I can't wait till they get these to just like plant in place by default with update 8. But just a few little floor mounts here, just to so we can string some basic piping. And this is going to come all the way out, and you have to. This gets weird here too, because some things they just don't let you place them at the absolute edge, but that's okay because this is really just temporary. This is more or less a placeholder. Let me continue this into second piece, and we will continue with these. And this last one doesn't have to come all the way out to the end. That's not important. We just need it to get past our refineries. All right, let's get some pipes in here. My default pipe color is the color swatch that I use for water, and I will repaint this for the color that I use to oil later. All right, so that will be our central oil line. And what we've got here is, now you see the way I've pointed these inwards here, the oil inputs, the liquid inputs for the refineries are offset from each other. They don't just line up even. So when we put in our splitters, our junctions here, I try to get them centered, and let's see, I make sure I'm on noodle for this. And, you know, and this is depending on your tolerance, you know, for symmetry or non-symmetry. This may or may not bother you. This is perfectly fine for me, and actually, depending on how it comes out, and you may notice this in my builds later on, these actually can lead to some very neat designs. I like this a lot. So let me get these in place. Actually, what I do a lot too, and this is, again, probably nothing new to a lot of you, I put down a whole bunch of these first, and then worry about connecting all the pipes in a second step. It just makes things go a little quicker. I'm looking for the guideline. This one is actually the center of the building, so it's not lining up with any of the inputs per se. Okay, so there's our crosses needed. Let's get them all connected. Okay. So now, what I also like to do is I like to eliminate these extraneous the mounts where I can. Like, I don't like this here. I get weird behaviors if you have like a segmented pipe in the middle of a strip like this. So I'll just like take out a section like that and just replace it with a single straight pipe. Just simplifies, I think, tidies a little bit. We're going to take these out, and when we put the actual pieces together later, we will attach that with a single pipe connection. Let's take out these. These have served their purpose. Take that out. Now, let's get this guy connected. We're going to set, I like setting this one horizontal to vertical, and it gives me a nice little L bend. So what we're going to do is, well, what we would do, we're not going to do a whole build here, but basically I would bring in my oil from outside and I'd basically attach it and pump it into a wall, comes up from the bottom from the logistics floor to get sent up to the machines and then gets distributed. Let me paint that really quickly. Being overly picky about my swatches, it's not important. I just need to keep this rolling. I mean, yeah, I could have just changed the default color for pipes, but honestly, I just, I hate resetting all my defaults constantly. I'll just like leave it at one default and then just paint things the color they need to be afterward. All right, so there is our input, right? All right, now the outputs. So, all right, here's the squirreliness I was talking about before. Actually, it might not be as big a factor on the outsides. So, yeah, I get different behaviors whether I use a single tile for these in-between alleys or doubles. Don't worry about the squirreliness. I'm thinking of something different. What I am going to do here, though, I'm going to do this a little differently. What's the best way, really? Yeah, no, I'm going to do it this way. All right. So let me get my floor-mounted stand here, or mount, and I'm going to put this actually on the floor, right? I'm going to get this placed. All right, let's run our pipes. All right, let's get our junctions. We don't have to worry about offsetting them or anything because everything can just line up. We're not dividing these across uneven mounting points. I know sometimes I'm not explaining myself well, but I do my best. Alright, let me pull my pipes out. Now, I could do this... yeah, no, I think it's... let's see, do I want it this way? Yeah, alright, we'll do it this way. We'll leave it on horizontal and vertical. And get these all guys connected. Nope, not really. Okay, let's tidy this up a little. Alright, a little dab of paint. Again, we're going to use primary color dark purple to indicate heavy oil residue. Okay, right. Now, here is where I throw in my, my temporary platforms. Okay, now for this segment, and this is not going to be an actual production segment, but again, just for demonstrations. So what I'm thinking is what I might want to do in this case. So this bank or pod of refineries will proceed into a pod of blenders to turn heavy oil residue into fuel, also divert some of it off to make petroleum coke, etc. But I'm also going to take the polymer resin. I'm going to belt this out the opposite direction. So the heavy oil residue goes that way, and the polymer resin goes this way. So let me place my mergers, make sure they're oriented correctly, and God knows I have done that to myself, and it's, you know, it's why I like doing this in the Blueprint Designer. You know, it really sucks, and you're building something that's out in the world, and, you know, it's like if you make a mistake, you know, and unfortunately sometimes those mistakes get worked into the system very deeply until you realize you've made a mistake. You know, you can just do it like a mass erase, you know, or quickly reload a blueprint or whatever you need to do, instead of necessarily having to dismantle. God only knows what you might have done, you know, because God knows I've done it. So let me get these in place. Alright. So here's a little thing I've started incorporating into my builds for dealing with manifolds. And you'll see this. I've done this in varying degrees throughout my factory. You may notice it if you look closely. So what I do is the central line, I will use a Mark V belt, right? Fastest. It's not really about whether we need the full 780 capacity because that's how much of an item that's being produced. This is simply about need to expedite, you know, things to move out of the way. When building like this, You need to make sure if you want to avoid stalls, again, especially if you're dealing with if you're trying to do the 100% efficiency thing, you cannot allow byproducts to get you jammed up. So you want things to move out. But what I also do is I use slow belts for when they actually come out of the machine and get merged in. And see, here's the thing. Now, I use the slowest belt I can get away with. So, like, if I look at the recipe, this is going to produce, adjusted for the clock speed, 18.75 per minute, right? So I can use a Mark 1 belt, which will support 60 per minute. It's more than fast enough. What it does here, though, is it delays things just ever so slightly and makes merging into the central line significantly smoother. And I can show you examples of this later. So let me get these here. This is also very helpful for using manifolds feeding in to recipes, to use a fast main belt to get things moving from one end to the other fast, but only as fast as a belt you need actually connecting the input. And again, helps smooth out the delivery of a manifold. And I think in the end it's really mostly a visual effect, but I do think it increases the overall distribution and the ramp-up time that we know manifolds can add time to. All right, everybody's connected here. So that's connected. All right, let me take out my temp blocks. That's everybody? That's everybody. All right. Let me paint that. I got a nice dark blue I like to use for plastics. I did actually erase some glass. That's okay. Let's replace that quickly. Okay. Now, these aren't going to do a whole lot for us without being linked to power. I don't like to use power poles, but I don't feel the need to absolutely hide my power cables all the time. As long as, to me, it's tidy and presentable, and if you can, make a nice pattern with it. So this is how I do it. Is it the prettiest thing? It's subjective. But, you know, so I just take, I link it from here, and I just slap a little node right down here, right? So, I mean, yeah, you got a cable that strings up and goes to the top. I mean, I've experimented with ways of making these, the nodes closer to the power nodes of the machines. And, you know, I just keep coming back to this. So let me get these strung along here. I could use higher end nodes to connect more devices to a single, you know, node, more machines to a single node than I am currently. It's just not something I need. I like the pattern that comes out in the end. It's not like a fantastic pattern. It's not, you know, amazing, but it's just neat, tidy. Oops. Yeah, I do that a lot too. Start dropping power poles where I didn't mean to. Okay, so each one has a power lead on them, right? And we have a chain that goes down the line. Now, one thing I like to do for myself, for visual reminders, I like to leave just little indicators. So when I put my pieces together, because when you're dealing with very large factory structures, things can get a little confusing, and it's easy to lose your place. So I'm just going to drop these guys in here, and this is just a simple visual indicator. I fall into a pattern when I build my factories. I have an internal circuit that is the primary power to all the machines. And I mark that pale green. I use white for a secondary power circuit, if I want to stage the machines. But this is just simply so, in case I don't recall to do this correctly, immediately, I will eventually at some point walk by it and say, oh, there's those connectors. These have to be joined after I put out the pieces, because you can't cross the segments of between designers. So those will have to get rejoined when I actually place these out. So that's just a visual reminder for that. I'm not worried. I mean, sometimes I will do it for belts and pipes and things, especially because if they start getting super complex underneath, I have to put in some reminders to show me, okay, those need connecting. We'll get to that. So now what I do from here, all right, so this is like the head of the line. We'll call this the rear. Everything goes forwards, right? Going that direction. So at the rear of the line is where basically I set this up. What I'll do, I'm going to take this one little node at the end, and I'm going to just like drop a little mount. I like to center it. Oh, where's my light? Give me my light. All right. I like to center it. So, I mean, there's a tiny little bit of clipping, but I'm okay with that. Just a shred of clipping, I'm good with. I'm going to bring that down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take this, I'm going to string this along to the other segment of pedestals, or platforms. And in the same rough location, and we'll take him and connect him to this node. I can't touch it from that way. Just give me the node. Thank you. Click it. Click. All right. So, and then, I will also do this here too. And this part, for the power connectors, and again, this is just my personal patterns and habits here, I leave visual indicators for what power line is on what circuit. So in this case, it's primary power, it's pale green. All right. Now, okay. So, the refineries have links to power. Each row of refineries is now joined together, and it's just a matter of providing a link to that. Now, so what I do, and again, this is just my personal habit, I've settled on a pattern where I stagger different stages of power level. These are color coded. So this one will be the master power, the main power coming from the outside, and it's bright green to indicate that's coming from New Nuketown, the large nuclear power source, right? So that's going to be the main power line. We have pale green to be primary internal, and we have white to be secondary internal. Secondary, thank you. All right, and the reason why I place these this way, this is something I started having a problem with, is the first time I tried doing something like this, I had them lined up evenly. And what it turned out is, depending on which way I had to send power, they kept clipping into each other, lines crossing nodes, not necessarily connecting to a node, but like passing right through it, and it just made it very visually confusing what's going where. So I started doing things, so no matter where I place these arrangements, as long as I follow this pattern, everything will just stay nice and isolated, visually clear of what goes where, and you can expand and elaborate on it easily. All right, so now this, what I would wind up doing is, let's see, let's do it this way. So let me go down now. I have to place a bank of nodes part way through. Let's see. Halfway down. Do it here. Put one on the end. And for the one on the end here, we'll stagger them in the opposite direction. It's not really important. Everything works just fine regardless of which direction they're staggered. Okay, so that's that. And just the beginnings of one here. It doesn't have to go all the way down. At least, well, not at this point. Oops. Okay, now I'm gonna get these run down. No. Sometimes I want it to do that, and other times I don't, and it's... Stop that. Oh, good feature forward. And what we'll do for fun here... So, I want to build a power switch that will basically enable or disable this pod of machines. And I got a little, just, you know, my personal way of doing this. It's, you know, just my aesthetic such as it is. It's not a brilliant aesthetic, it's just mine. Now, the way that I'm doing this will, well, may make sense in a moment. Let's add some end caps on that. I did not make that quite long enough. That's fine. Let's just add that's just fine. End caps. We're going to paint this. So in this case, what I'm going to do, this base bar is the bright green to represent that the source will be the main external power. And I'm going to throw a switch on here. I take the switch, I'm going to paint it pale green to indicate that it's taking from main external power to become the primary internal power. And the reason why I elevated that is because I want to use some little foundations here just to kind of like maybe kind of indicate this is like a little special spot. It's a special function. Just kind of elevates it. You know, gives a little tiny bit of a look to it, you know. So now let me get these, let me get my nodes down underneath. And I personally, I have utterly no qualms about clipping a cable down through the floor. It is not something, I'm just role-playing that my Pioneer is perfectly capable of drilling a hole, you know. Alright, so, and I use this little cross just for the sake of stringing an extra thing. That's obviously not where we really want that. Alright, so now what I hear, because this node is going to be our input to our main external power, so I gotta throw an extra beam here, just to mark what's what. This is hot green. Hot green. Let's get this. He connects here. Alright, so we start distributing our main power throughout this blueprint. And this is lined up, well, mostly lined. Actually, I'm not happy with where that is. Hold on, let me do this better. Good enough. I'll take it. Alright. And get him. And he goes to the input of the switch. And depending on the layout, I may even add, like, I'll just do it for demonstration here again. I'll add an extra bar to indicate, because this might be some distance, you know, and not necessarily visually clear where that line is coming from. So I'll throw a block and paint it just to indicate where it's source. The block is actually directional also. It's pointing that way to let you know that it's coming, its source is this way. All right, and then I will take this one. I'm not actually going to throw another bar. Well, I put it in. And we'll drop that there. It's power, green, pale. And connect that. All right. So, and he indicates, okay, so we've got the main power, the heart green is coming in from this one, and it goes out as primary internal power to that. And then this guy sends it upward to that strip down there, and it sends it to the side to that strip down there. So once everything is in place, I then basically just, you know, connect up, you know, our main power to an external line. And then when I flip the switch, all these machines will come online. So, that's pretty much it. That's built. There's 20 refineries ready to make, what did I say again? A total of 750 heavy oil residue per minute. So, and so yeah, actually, if we were to see this all the way through, when we were done, we would have to, we would not be able to join those pipes. They would be two independent feeds. All right, so let's save these. I'm not going to worry about coloring the icon or anything like this right now. This is just heavy oil residue demonstration part 2, because this is a secondary part, and we're going to do heavy oil residue demo part 1. Save that. Okay, now, a little bit of warning about these large blueprint designers. I don't know if the vanilla blueprint designer does this also. One of the things I had learned when I started rebuilding my world, and I put these things out there and I started coming up with mega designs, I was losing parts. You know, I'd clear the designer, I'd load up a blueprint, I'd make changes, I'd clear the designer again, and I started realizing I had like stacks of parts disappearing on me. I'm like, what is going on? There's a bug. And what happened, I don't know exactly how it works out, but basically, after you clear a designer, everything goes into the chest here, right? But the thing is if you load a blueprint immediately after, it should only use the parts that it needs from the thing. It winds up blowing everything out. Or if you load a secondary blueprint and you didn't empty the chest, and then you clear the designer, basically everything recovered from the second design you cleared blows out anything that's in the chest. So you wind up stuff is just disappearing. I honestly, I'm not even sure this is still an issue presently. Basically, I've just simply adapted, the workaround, which is, okay, we've saved our blueprints. I'm going to clear the designer. All right, go on. Just empty it. Just pick up all your stuff immediately. Don't do anything else in the designer until you've emptied that chest. You might not get your stuff back. All right. Okay, so we made our blueprints. We've recovered our materials. I'm just picking a random spot. This is just sheerly for demonstration purposes. This is not, production. So I'm just going to go over here. Yes, I know there's no oil. I'm not going to worry about that. That's, actually, or do I? Hold on, let me think about something really quickly. Alright, so again, this is all just for demonstration purposes. This is not something I'm going to keep, but so I've flown out here where we've got some oil nodes, and we've got, I believe, 2 normal and 2 impure. I am absolutely not normal, and I am absolutely impure. Anyways, okay, dude. So let's slap some oil extractors down. I'm not going to worry about making these too neat here right now. I want them this kind of like more or less oriented so that their pipes can join together. Let's see. Let's do it like this, something like this. All right, we're gonna. This is just quick and dirty. Let's slide a pipe. Let's get some junctions. Let's see. We're going to connect you. Oops. Alright, stop that. Let's slap a connection here. Let's slap a connection there. I'm going to need an extension for this one. So I'll connect him here and that. Here and here to here. Yeah, right, dude. Let's turn that noodle. I like noodle for some things. There we go. Not everything. Not worried about coloring right now. Alright, so what I'll do now, I've already strung power out here in, I call this rock tracer. It basically, again, I don't like the power poles. I may use the large power poles when update 8 comes out. I'm not sure. But this is basically what I do. Is like I just keep this mostly, low to the ground, tracing along rocks. Yeah, some moderate clipping, mostly out of the way. And the idea is I want to keep these alleys, these natural roadways open to build highways and trains through later on. And I don't want them necessarily clipping through the power. Everything is relocatable in the long run, but that's all neither here nor there right now. So now I will start with, let me get a, oops, that's not what I want. Let me get, start with a chunky foundation here. And I'm going to control to place him, snap him to the world grid. Let me, there is fine. And then what we will do, we will take a 1 meter And now the whole thing is the way I designed my blueprints. Remember, I didn't place any foundations on the bottom of the blueprint designer. These blueprints are intended to be placed on top of an existing platform. So we're going to stretch this out. Okay, so we're going to start. I'm going to make this 12 wide. Am I clipping? Yeah, I'm clipping through it. Let me elevate this a little further. 1 second. That should do it. All right. So 12 wide. And we're going like 18 long. And this is deliberately oversized. It's not important, but you can be exact if you want. All right, and I do dig that part. Watching all the parts fly out. This, again, just one of the beauties of Smart. I love that mod. All right, so I have our platform. We got a 12 by 18, right? I'm going to put some walls at a corner for guidance purposes. I look forward to nudge. Even then, I get a feeling it's going to have its limitations. And again, this is just to help line things up easier because it's a little weirder the way I have it elevated and built into the blueprint. Anyway, so let's go to our blueprints. We have our heavy oil residue demo part 1. We're going to take him. He's a big boy. Spin him around. All right. And yeah, it's hard to see out the corner, but I've got it just snapped into the corner of those walls. They're too high. I know it's there's 2 walls high. They're not too high as in too tall high, etc., etc. And let's just go ahead and click that in. Enjoy the show. All right, there's part 1. Now, I'll give you a little demonstration here. So, okay, we're putting in part 2, and maybe I had a couple extra nips this evening, and my hand-eye coordination is like that. Oops! I dropped it. It's out of alignment. Oh no! And we don't have the blueprint mass dismantle yet. Autosave. All right, so we can't build like that. We can't. That's not going to work, right? But destroying it would be a task. I mean, hopefully, the blueprint mass dismantle will work on large blueprints like these when it comes out. But anyways, that's an aside. So, switching to area actions, let me lay down some markers. Basically, I'm just going to start on the corners. And this gets a little quirky about placing these exactly, but you get the knack of it after a point. You want to be careful because we're bumping up it like absolutely adjacent to an existing structure that we don't want to take apart. So just kind of like move it inward, not using the absolute corner, just inwards, just a shade. And it gives us just a tiny little bit of buffer room in there. It's going to leave a couple little odds and ends. That's okay. That's fine, right? All right, let's finish the 4th corner. All right, now we need to set the bottom because I want to keep the foundation. And actually, all you got to do is click the foundation. So the way that this works, that actually will leave the bottom foundations in place. The bottom is actually set just a tiny shade above, right? Which is just what we want. Now, also, for this segment, it's not important. It's not in the exact segment, but I will warn you, I did encounter an issue. If you have a switch in your blueprint and both nodes are connected to something, and you try to use area actions mass dismantle, it will crash out the game. Or at least it has done it for me before, and I definitely isolated. It's about power switches, and that the power switch needs to have both nodes connected. So if I undid one, I could mass dismantle and including the switch and be all right. But with both of them like this, if I had to mass dismantle this area with area actions, it'll crash the game out. Again, may or may not be fixed at this point. I don't know. I just don't even bother trying it right now. All right, so we have our selection. If this was something with factory levels above it, we would want to set a top as well, but we're not worried about that right now. And so we right-click, go mass dismantle. Are you sure you want to dismantle? Yes. And then dismantle 123 buildings. Do you want to receive the items in a crate near you? Yes. Bonk! Is it in your face? So there it is. Right there's all your stuff back. So just pick all that up. Right-click and clear, so it clears our markers. All right. Now, and then, like I said, leaves little things behind depending on where you place them. Not a deal breaker. Okay. And actually, it's the second piece there, isn't it? Yeah. All right, so let's clear him out. All right. Everybody gone? All right, good. All right. Now let's place our blueprint correctly. Now, I could put up additional walls for guidance. I'm not that worried about it right now. That by itself, that's just perfect. That's exactly where we want it. Everything's lining up, right? All right, so are you ready? Are you done? Not done. I do enjoy watching the builds, especially with the big blueprints. It's just cool. All right, so now we need all our things connected. I'm not going to worry about painting every little detail right now. We're just going to get the main things clicked into place here. We have this one that needs connecting, and let's take this, connect him here. We're going to put our belts in. Main lines get fast belts. What am I doing? Stop that. Ugh. I have to make sure I unequip area actions when I'm doing normal things, because it kind of pops up in inopportune points. So let's connect that belt on this side. Okay. I'm going to drop some floor holes here. I'm not going to worry about super pretty. Is that where I want it? That's not exactly where I want it. No, where I do want it here, so I can do this. Take an elevator, snap that in there. All right, let's do that on the other side. And he's a little farther back because the offset. I'm not going to worry again about, like I said, about being absolutely pretty. So let's just get this in here. I do normally try to make these so that when I put in my vertical lifts, oops, I didn't reverse it. I got to set that the right direction. I like to keep them turned to show, you know, the part that they're moving. I forgot to freaking reverse it again. Damn it. Reverse it. There you go. So yeah, I like to have them angled, you know, rotated so that they display the part they're carrying. Now let's get our belt in here, and let's do this really quickly. So let's see. So I need put this here, and yeah, on the floor is fine for now. I don't worry so much about keeping stuff off the floor inside the logistics floor, because it really is not a whole lot of space. Actually, let me do this. Yeah, that's fine. Let's put this guy this way. So, yeah, here, I don't care so much if I'm putting stuff on the floor. It's not important. Let's get our belt going down this way. He won't reach quite all the way. Am I got this lined up right? There, let's snap that. There's fine. Stick a merger. Point him the right direction. Get the cables out of our face so we can line things up. Stop that. Did I not? Oh, let me guess. If I got that going the wrong freaking direction. No, that's right. Is he aligned? He's aligned. Alright. Okay. And I'm just going to extend this again, because, again, just for, not power line. Power line's getting you away at the weirdest times, I swear. I'm just going to extend that a little bit just so I can slap a sink down. If this were a full-out build, I would definitely make this prettier. I definitely have sinks placed around that are not necessarily in a pretty fashion. And again, I'm not worried about absolutely aligning this. I'm going to just do a cheap and dirty. We're going to connect the sink to the primary external power, so he's always on. He is never accidentally disabled. But let's also so where's do I want to connect this from? Let's do it from this side, I think. Yeah. So what I'll do, and this is what I would normally do, is I repeat my staggered points. Really only need the one. We'll paint him the right color for reference, so I know what the hell I've got. Let's slap a node on here. And so what I do from this point is I'll take him, pull him right down through the floor, snap it that way, and now I'll take this guy, and where's the closest? Let's bring one a little closer, just for. Screw it. Just right here is fine. I'm overthinking this. All right, just a demo, right? Okay. So now we have this connected to the main power. Comes up through the floor here. This gets circulated around the rest of the building, and so now if we check here, we should see. Yep, we're connected to the main grid, 234 megawatts. Currently, there is 30,000.7 in use. There are other factories built at this point. We'll go over those another time. I can apply a name if I want. I'm not going to worry about this moment here. Let's patch our oil in. Let's get this here. So let's say, all right, let me zoop this. I'm not adverse to zoop. Actually, smart plus zoop is beyond brilliant. So yeah, it's utterly indispensable for me. Let's slap a wall hole here. All right. Do I want that one? Yeah, it's fine. Let's do a pipe, horizontal or vertical. So it looks something nice-ish. I don't need this. Now, what sometimes I'll do is I'll put, depends on where they're placed and where they go, I'll put a pump at the beginning of each line just to start things moving. But I think for this one, just for demonstration, I'm just going to slap a pump here. All right, and let's get a node connected. I'm not going to worry about coloring everything this exact moment, but basically I'm going to also connect him to the primary external grid. Let us also, and I'm going to break my rule again just for the demo. I'm going to put a power pole up. Yay for power poles. And let's get these guys powered. Let's actually upgrade that power pole. I'm not keeping any of this, so I really don't care. Get him connected. Okay. Now, as they are right now, these extractors are not going to give us enough. They have to be overclocked. Let's load them up. All right. Now they're ready. Now we will take our good friend, the efficiency checker, handheld only. Pipe mounted and belt mounted, problems. Maybe someday he'll fix them, but I don't know. Basically, you just point it at a thing, it highlights, you click on it, and oh, I put in more than I expected. I thought these would only give me 600 total, but they gave me 900. All right, it's not important. In fact, let's actually. So somebody can come out. Let's So that's a 150. That's a 300. I brain farted. All right, so let's just take that one out. Take this one out. Take it out. Now go back to this. 600 and 600. All right. Now, stop. Get out. All right, let's put that away for a moment. I like to put in the automatic doors so I can just go in and out and not leave gaping holes. Just go through that. Now we will, we have to come this way. Let me get a ceiling mount for the pipe. Just the right spot. So we're going to hit the center and a little offset. Bing, bing, like that. And so we're on horizontal or vertical, so we get nice bends. Put that to there. And then we'll put this to here. And now we check our efficiency checker. So we have 600 injected with the limit of 600, so it's the maximum the pipe can handle. Required output being 562.5, so we're have a surplus. And you can see, so now this is basically going on down the line. And what I will do is I will just basically let this pack. You know, give this a few moments to get the line full, and it shouldn't take that long. These guys are cranking away, right? Let's take that out. Let's double check the head lift on here. This should be just fine. 16 meters. Perfect. That's, I mean, not perfect, but you get it. All right, so basically I'll wait for this to stall out. All right, pump stopped. Extractors are stalled. The line is packed. All right. Now, the thing is, we have not fired these up yet. They don't allow their ingredients to come in until they receive power. So, pretending that this was going to be part of a full build and that the next stage would be the blenders creating diluted fuel, basically what I would do from here is I would fire this on just temporarily. Alright, so these guys kick on, and what's going to happen is they're going to start sucking in some oil, and they're going to start depriving the line a little bit. It's going to get a little thin, right? It won't be as packed, and you can run into problems, right? So we're going to let this go for just a minute. Basically, all we want is right now is I want all of these to be full. And why isn't he... Oh, did I not connect my... I didn't connect. See? Yeah. Connect my power. Probably didn't do the side either, did I? Did not. They are smart. Alright. Okay, so that's going. Alright, we want these to run just long enough so everybody gets full. See, these guys at the end are getting starved out right now, right? But the ones down here at the beginning, this is, you know, just part of the pitfalls of manifolding. These are full. Alright, so we're going to stall it. We're going to shut it down. Alright. Let the pipe repack. Again, power's off. They won't take in ingredients until power is returned. We will start this very briefly one more time, just enough to let them fill their internal input buffers. Let's check our buffers down here. Ooh, not quite enough. I gotta let it run longer. All right, hold on. Let's go actually pay attention this time. I want this full at 50. There's that one. Alright, he's got 50. Alright, now let's shut this off again. Now that everybody's buffers are full, we'll shut it down. Wait for the pipes to repack. And just so, again, for some demonstration, I'm going to throw down a couple of buffers just so that the heavy oil residue has a place to go. So it's not important if it's the fire station. Yeah. Okay, let's get those connected. All right. So oil line is packed. All the refinery's buffers are packed. All right. From this point, again, presuming this is a full build, we would turn this on. That's the one thing about flies. It really is kind of fast, and small motions are difficult. So we got this flipped on. And so now from this point, this line should never starve. Everybody should always basically have full input buffers every time they consume, and they just suck it in because it's all right there. The pipe is constantly full. Liquids are spooky. So this doesn't always work exactly right. This takes finessing sometimes. That's a different video. Otherwise, generally speaking, from this point, this line will stay packed. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of slack. That's utterly unavoidable at some point. But it should never be so slack that anything is getting starved. Everybody should have all the input that they need, you know, perpetually. And in this case, so here is our slow belts versus fast belts for merging. Again, depending on, you know, where I have this placed, this is, you know, more apparent, the benefit you get. But, you know, again, the 60 belt is fast enough to take, you know, the byproduct out so they don't back up and stall. And this is basically just pumping stuff down, merging it, sending it into the sink. In this case, our heavy oil residue, our product, is going to buffers. We'll, you know, pretend that they're a pot of blenders. And then we watch, and eventually, you know, and it doesn't happen immediately, these will hit 100% efficiency, and this would just run. So that's more or less what I do for my builds. Let's flesh this out a little bit here. A little smart zoop, very long and too tall. We got some excess. Let's clear that. So we do this one. That's good. Fine. It's just overthinking it. Demo. So, and there we have a pod of machines, and this would be adequate to provide the heavy oil residue needed to make a factory producing 600 turbo fuel per minute. Yeah, that's kind of how I built. Yeah, everything kind of comes out a little samey after a point. This is just mostly about neatness, presentability for the time being. I'll worry about fancifying everything at another stage. Right now, I just want things tidy, orderly, and, you know, and working. So, yeah, there it is. There's a pod of machines. Folks, I think that's going to do it for now. Hopefully this isn't too long a video. Yeah, I've been prattling for a while, so I hope you found this informative and useful and enjoyed it. Folks, thank you again for coming by. I want to thank everybody who, the new folks who subscribed, and everybody who's been watching it, even if they're only watching 5 minutes of it. Whatever. The information is here. All right, so until next time, stay healthy and take care out there.